good to be here together with so many wonderful friends of Israel. I have to make a small correction. We have actually been around since 1978, but just the recent years we have really exploded in members. Our aim is, and our goal is to, through factual and comprehensive information on the Middle East conflict, on the Jewish people and its history, we seek to create a deeper and stronger sympathy for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel. And this we do both through our webpage and bi-monthly magazines, and we work actively towards the Norwegian public, Norwegian politicians and media, to try to bring some of the Israeli perspectives, because they are lacking a lot. So we can say most news media in Scandinavia, they convey a worldview which to a very small degree makes room for the Israeli perspective. And there are two kinds of systematic deficiencies in the media coverage on the Middle East. Number one is that positive news and information that can create sympathy and understanding for Israel is very often under-communicated. And the same goes for countless examples of hate and violence from the Palestinian side. We also see an absence of critical journalism on the mismanagement of the Palestinian Authority, and more than 20 years of hate indoctrination and terror glorification actually from the Palestinian authorities, which have been permeating the Palestinian society. This has been largely overlooked by the Scandinavian media. And that is why the Friends of Israel are needed. That is why you are needed to correct this one-sided news coverage. And the stories the voices, the perspectives that our national TV channel does not tell. You can read these on the web pages of the organizations participating here today. And you see, Scandinavian news media, they are often portraying the Palestinians as the little David standing against the giant Goliath represented by Israel. But an alternative perspective is that Israel historically has been the little David standing up against the giant Goliath represented by the entire Arab and Muslim world. Israel is a liberal lighthouse in a dark ocean of Arab and Muslim intolerance and mismanagement, and therefore deserves all our support. At the same time, Israel has become a lightning rod which their neighbors use to get attention off their own dysfunctional repressive regimes and their democratic deficits. And the entire Arab and Muslim world, they need to look up to and to learn from Israel, both regarding democracy, human rights, freedom of religion, gender equality, political freedom, freedom of expression, research and development, business development, etc. Israel is not what is wrong in the Middle East. Israel is what is right in the Middle East. Inside Israel lives about 1.8 million Arabs, and most of them are Muslims. They have freedom and rights, which their Arab family in the neighboring countries only can be dreaming about. And this is totally unproblematic for the world community, and it's not considered as any threat to peace. You know, the fact that 20% of the Israeli inhabitants are Arabs or Palestinians. But, and this is strange, the fact that 200,000 or 300,000 Jews are living inside the area that may be a part of a future Palestinian state, that is considered a major obstacle to peace. Where is the logic? I think this is a good example of the hypocrisy and double standard which we often see from our media. Since 1948, about 1 million Jews fled from Israel's neighboring countries because these countries, they are neither willing nor able to give the Jewish minority safety and security. Today, only a few thousand Jews are left in the Middle East outside of Israel. In the last years, we also see Christians have been fleeing from many of Israel's neighboring countries and also from the Palestinian areas. Today, being a homosexual in the Middle East is extremely dangerous, also in the Palestinian area. Women have also restrictions all over the Middle East. Only Israel is willing and able to give all these groups, Jews, Christians, homosexuals and women, full rights and freedom. There are many myths and things that are not true that are being said about the conflict between Israel and Palestinians. But here are some of them. We often hear that Gaza is occupied. But the truth is that Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. And since then, Gaza has been practically Judenreich. I also have to say that Mahmoud Abbas, he actually said that a future Palestinian state, inside a future Palestinian state, not a single Israeli is going to live there. Now, I have to ask, where is the media outrage for that statement? We also hear it said that Gaza is hermetically sealed. That was the reason for this ship to Gaza movement. But the reality is that every month Israel admits thousands of truckloads with food, medicine and household necessities. Only goods that may be used for military purposes are under restriction. In addition, hundreds of Palestinians from Gaza have received medical treatment in Israeli hospitals. We also said that the financial problem in Gaza are to blame on Israel, because Israel gets the blame on everything today. Well, fact is, when Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, among other things, they left behind more than 3,000 greenhouses, which were a foundation for a huge export of flowers, vegetables, and agriculture things, as a startup help for economic development for the inhabitants in Gaza. That could be very good to have, okay? But instead of benefiting from these, the residents went ballistic and smashed all the 3,000 greenhouses. Israel have also conceded thousands of tons of cement and concrete, which should be used to build schools, hospitals, other civilian infrastructure. But instead, Hamas used this to build terror tunnels, approximately 800 tons each tunnel. We often hear, I think this is the biggest mistake, or you can say the biggest error in Scandinavian media and among politicians. We often hear that the basic problem is the Israeli occupation. We hear that all the time. And they say that if only Israel would withdraw back to 1967 lines, then there would be peace. Unfortunately, this is the opinion most Scandinavian politicians and media are holding up. But the reality is that Palestinian terror towards Jews has started a long time before 1967. PLO, which means Palestinian Liberation Organization, was started in 1964. Then there was no occupation to talk about. So you can say that, Israel actually withdrew from the 67 lines when you're talking about Gaza. And what did they get in return? Thousands of rockets instead. And this is also important to know. When Palestinian leaders, both in Fatah and Hamas, when they use the term end of occupation, then the Western media, Western politicians think that they are talking about 1967. But to their own citizens on Arabic, they are talking about 1948, which means that Israel will have to disappear. All you need to do is take a look at the different logos of PLO. Then you know what they want. Also, I want to say something about some important facts about Palestinian refugees and the occupation from 67. Well, it is completely wrong to assert that we hear so often that it was the establishment of Israel in 1948 that created the